Welcome to this episode of CosRail. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everyone that AFO is coming up on August 5th. I'll be hosting my panel, Intro to Cosplay Photography, along with Negative Dreamer, that Friday at 5:30. We're planning on a lot of improvements. In other news, I got to see Captain America, which all in all, it was okay. I noticed before the film they showed a teaser for the new Spider-Man movie coming up. It seems to have a more serious tone, but I noticed they'll be going over Spider-Man's origin all over again. I'm a little curious how and why they want to go back over that, since not only is Spider-Man such a established character, everyone pretty familiar with him, but the previous films, those ended a couple of years ago, and it wasn't the first one's not even 10 years old. My guest today is Tskyli, or as I know her better as, Daisha. And since we talked a little bit about Spider-Man earlier, what do you think about the whole do-over approach? Do you think it's kind of too soon to do that, or?
Actually, I kind of like it. From what I can tell right now, it sticks more to the original comic of Spider-Man, and that, in all honesty, that's a lot better to me than what they did start off with for the other movies. All in all, though, with the trailer, it was okay. I'm excited to see it. I want to see how it plays out first.
So, reeling back to our interview, I've known you for a while now. It seems you become pretty known and active throughout the community in Florida. You even took part in a convention recently, is that right?
Yep. Anime Planet convention here in Sanford, Florida.
What was your role in that?
I was actually one of the staff members. The founder was a friend of mine, Jen, and another one of the staff members was my friend Courtney, also known as Fathix. The three of us were actually the main backbone behind running this con, and we are the ones who did a lot of the work. Later on, Kendall, also known as Aloit Cosplay, Eva no Jutsu, she joined on with our staff and actually helped us out a lot too.
How was the convention overall, do you think?
The convention was a big success. I'm actually really happy with how it came out. It was amazing, and to anyone who's listening who went to that con, the people who attended were just amazing. We had such a great time. It was an overall success, and we're just really happy with the turnout rate. We had over 145 people show up, which was more than we were expecting. We were expecting about 80 people to show up.
Before the convention, there was a lot of changes, and it seemed like it was almost a little hectic, despite, it ended up being pretty successful. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the planning that went involved and maybe, what led to some of those changes?
It was extremely hectic for a while. What ended up happening is our original venue location that we were going to have the convention at ended up getting canceled on us because of some complications with the school and the people who were helping us host it. For about a week, we were panicking, and we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? We don't have a place to stay. We don't have a place to host this. So we were trying to find a place to host the convention while keeping it on the same date and the same times. So it would just basically be the only information updated would be the location. However, we did end up working back with the school. We managed to kind of get back on track. First, we ended up at the Heathrow campus as a relocation, but then we later found out that we wouldn't be able to have the times that we had. So the people in the Heathrow campus worked with us, and we managed to get our original venue back. And it confused a lot of people, but we're happy that we ended up getting back to where we were.
Yeah, I've worked with a small convention like Anime Planet, although I think you have really good advantage of just being in a place like Orlando where you have so much diversity and people active in the community. But I remember not only did you really have to deal with the problems of having to work with certain rules or trying to get certain paperwork in, but also having to rely on the people around you. And a lot of times, when people kind of have different expectations, there's always a sense of conflict between people, and just I think the best way to put it is you'll always kind of have people who they won't really do much, but they'll call you out on something you do. And did you ever have to deal with like any of that kind of drama? If you
Oh,
want to
yes.
talk about it, so
Yes, we actually had to deal with a lot of that. However, the situations were handled effectively and fast. And the drama that went behind it. We had a little bit of a scuffle, but that was having to do with the Facebook. And we worked around that and worked a solution now. And it was, yeah. Oh man. I know exactly where you're coming from with that.
yeah, it's pretty rough. But I think you guys do have a good advantage, and it seems like it worked out pretty well, regardless of anything going behind that.
We're actually really lucky with how many connections we actually had. If it wasn't for the connections we had and the management that we had for this convention, I'm almost positive that it wouldn't have gone as well and it wouldn't have gotten itself on the map. We actually ended up on a few websites as well, and that helped boost the popularity, I'm guessing. I was told by Jen that we ended up on some websites for scheduling for like first time cons and stuff like that, and cons that you should attend. And that was a big shock to me. It's especially great that we had those connections and that we could work around those.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing, especially when running a convention, is just reaching out to the people around you, whether it be other clubs, certain people in the community, or even just asking for criticism, asking for advice, asking for help. It's easy to think that you can kind of do things on your own or when you're in that small group of people, but at the same time, in order for it to be successful, it's an event about bringing people together, and it doesn't have to overshadow the planning, but getting people
Yeah.
involved is
Yeah.
part of what makes it successful.
It definitely has to do with groups and stuff like that. We had so much help this year. If we would have tried doing it on our own, we wouldn't have succeeded. We actually did end up getting help from the staff at Orlando Anime Day. They were the ones who talked to their dealers and asked their dealers if they would be interested in attending. Unfortunately, none of them showed up, but we did actually get a bunch of artists to show up instead in their place, and that helped us out tremendously.
Speaking of dealers, I remember my girlfriend, she attended the convention. She mentioned that there was some type of anime trade panel that she really liked. She mentioned that was one of the unique aspects about the convention that really stood out.
Yeah, that was actually something that Jen came up with. We had tried figuring out what to do since we didn't have any dealers, and she actually came up with the idea of having the anime trading there. It was actually a really good idea from what I heard, and it was very successful. From what she's told me, she's actually going to incorporate that into the convention now and make that a bigger part of it, because it is something unique that I've only seen it done once at a con, and I think that was JCon. It was either JCon or AFO that I saw that happen at.
You pretty much could say the convention was a success. Is there anything that, if you could go back or comes back in the future, is there anything you'd want to change or you'd want to do differently?
There was a lot of disorganization at the beginning. We also had a little bit of trouble to start off with. However, I guess I would say I would want to redo that. We also had volunteers that didn't show up. I'm hoping that she hires more volunteers next year. We didn't want to hire too much because volunteers got in for free this year. Well, they get in for free in general. And since we're starting off, we don't really have that much money, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough to even have another con.